The year was 629 CE. A storm was gathering beyond the borders of Arabia. For the first time, the Muslims would face not tribes, not caravans, not the warriors of Quraysh, but one of the most powerful empires on earth, the Byzantine Empire. An empire that ruled vast lands, commanded enormous armies, and had crushed countless enemies. Against them stood only 3,000 Muslims. 3,000 believers facing a force many times larger. Everything suggested defeat. Everything suggested destruction. Yet what happened at Mutah would create legends. Heroes would rise, commanders would fall, and a new name would emerge. A name history would never forget. Khalid ibn Al-Walid. This is the story of the Battle of Mutah. The message. The Prophet Muhammad sent envoys across Arabia and beyond. Their mission was simple: deliver the message of Islam peacefully. One of these messengers was Al-Harith ibn Umayr. As he traveled north, he was intercepted, captured, and killed. In Arabia, this was more than murder. Messengers were protected. Their lives were sacred. Killing an envoy was a declaration of war. The Muslims could not ignore it. A response was necessary. The Army of Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, assembled an army. 3,000 men. The largest Muslim force ever sent beyond Arabia. Before their departure, the Prophet appointed commanders. If Zayd ibn Harithah fell, Jaafar ibn Abi Talib would lead. If Jaafar fell, Abdullah ibn Rawahah would lead. It was a remarkable arrangement. The Prophet, peace be upon him, already understood the danger ahead. The army marched north, toward unknown territory, toward the frontier of an empire, toward destiny. The shocking news. As the Muslims approached Mutah, reports arrived. The enemy was gathering. Not thousands, not 10,000, far more. Byzantine forces and their allies were assembling in enormous numbers. The Muslims stopped. The news spread through the camp. Some suggested returning to Medina. Others proposed requesting reinforcements. The situation seemed impossible. Then Abdullah ibn Rawahah stood and spoke words that inspired the army. He reminded them, "We are not fighting because of numbers. We are fighting for what we believe." Courage returned. The army advanced. The battle begins. The two forces met near Mutah. The Muslims looked across the battlefield. Before them stood a sea of soldiers, rows upon rows stretching into the distance. Armor flashed in the sunlight. Banners filled the horizon. Yet the Muslims did not retreat. The battle began. The ground shook beneath charging warriors. Steel clashed. Dust filled the air. The greatest battle the Muslims had fought so far was underway. The fall of Zayd. Zayd ibn Harithah carried the Muslim banner. He fought bravely, leading from the front, encouraging the believers. Again and again he advanced, until finally he was struck down. The first commander had fallen. The banner dropped. The battle intensified. Immediately another warrior rushed forward. Jaafar ibn Abi Talib. Jaafar the hero. Jaafar seized the banner and charged in the battle. His courage became legendary. The fighting grew fierce, yet Jaafar refused to retreat. When one arm was injured, he held the banner with the other. When the second arm was injured, he held it close. He fought until his final moments. Then he too became a martyr. The second commander had fallen. The banner once again dropped toward the earth. Abdullah ibn Rawahah. Abdullah ibn Rawahah stepped forward. He knew what had happened to the commanders before him. He knew the danger. Yet he accepted leadership. He encouraged the Muslims, inspired them, led them into battle, and eventually, he too fell as a martyr. All three appointed commanders were gone. The army faced disaster. Leadership had vanished. The enemy continued pressing forward. Everything seemed lost. The rise of Khalid. The Muslims urgently needed a commander, someone capable of saving the army. Their choice was Khalid ibn al-Walid. He had embraced Islam only months earlier, but his military brilliance was already clear. Khalid accepted command. Immediately, he assessed the battlefield. The situation was desperate. Victory was impossible, but survival was not, and survival would require genius. The Sword of Allah. Throughout the night, Khalid reorganized the army. Units changed positions. Front lines rotated. Banners shifted. The next morning, the enemy noticed unfamiliar formations. They believed reinforcements had arrived. Confusion spread. Meanwhile, Khalid launched calculated attacks, then strategic withdrawals. Every movement served a purpose. Every decision bought time. Every maneuver protected lives. The Muslims fought fiercely. But Khalid was planning something greater. He was planning an escape. The Great Withdrawal. Most armies collapse during retreat. Panic spreads. Discipline disappears. Enemies pursue. Massacres follow. Khalid prevented all of it. Step by step, the Muslim army disengaged, maintaining formation, maintaining order, maintaining discipline. The Byzantines hesitated. They feared a trap. The Muslims continued withdrawing. Eventually, the army escaped. 3,000 believers had survived against impossible odds. Return to Medina. When news reached Medina, the Prophet, peace be upon him, informed the companions about the battle. He described the martyrdom of Zayd, then Jaafar, then Abdullah ibn Rawahah, and finally he spoke about Khalid. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Then one of the swords of Allah took the banner." From that day forward, Khalid carried a new title, a title that would echo through history. Saifullah, the Sword of Allah. Lessons of Mutah. Mutah was not a conventional victory. The Muslims did not conquer territory. They did not destroy the enemy army. But they achieved something extraordinary. They stood against a world power. They demonstrated courage. They proved their discipline. And they returned home alive. Mutah announced something important to the world. The Muslims were no longer merely a regional force. They had become a nation capable of confronting empires. At Mutah, 3,000 believers marched toward an army that should have destroyed them. 3 commanders became martyrs. Heroes emerged. Legends were born. And one man earned the title that history would never forget. Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah. The Battle of Mutah was more than a battle. It was the moment Islam stepped onto the world stage, and the world would never be the same again. The Battle of Mutah. 3,000 against an empire.